Hello and welcome back to the Pitch Side Podcast. I'm your host, the HOD of the PSB. Like, share, comment on the YouTube version of this and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Enable notifications to receive all the updates from these episodes of the podcast and all the content on the channel. Follow us on social media, site PSB on Twitter, Pitch Side Pod on Instagram, and of course listen on Spotify, Google Podcast or any other platform to our podcast. Welcome to episode 158. Let's kick the episode off by talking about the Premier League, of course, and round 37 kicks off on Tuesday. It is played over the course of the midweek on Tuesday and Wednesday, and it is a big fixture for the top four battle in the Premier League, of course, with the title already decided and the relegation battlers and relegation teams already being known in the three of West Ham, West Brom, Fulham, and Sheffield United. The rest of the season now, or the rest of the two fixtures now in the Premier League is going to be important for the top four battle, as it is, and doesn't get much important, I think, than Chelsea versus Leicester City. Elsewhere in the fixture, of course, Man United play Fulham, Southampton play Leeds United, Brighton play Manchester City, Everton play Southampton on Wednesday, Newcastle play Sheffield United, Tottenham, Aston Villa, Crystal Palace, Arsenal. Another important game, it is Burnley versus Liverpool, and West Brom play West Ham United. Of course, this game between Chelsea and Leicester City is going to be the focus of everyone, not just because the game itself is important for the two teams in the table, because it really puts them on the edge with Liverpool just behind them, but it's important for Liverpool as well because they're waiting for a result that could mean that if they defeat Burnley, they could sneak into the top four. I would say only whatever result probably is going to help Liverpool sneak into a top four if they win against Burnley, unless Chelsea winning, which in this case might not help them exactly, because the situation is on goal difference, and Leicester City's goal difference is better than Liverpool's goal difference, depending on the result, of course, that is going to be having. Leicester City certainly, enjoying some good form at the moment, really, and enjoying some good momentum, I would say, after the game against Chelsea in the FA Cup, the final of the FA Cup, defeating them 1-0 in a game where Thomas Tuchel, I think, paid the price for playing the wrong way, paid the price for choosing the wrong tactics, for choosing the wrong players, I would say. Starting with the likes of Alonso wasn't exactly good. Why didn't he start with Chilwell? Nobody knows, really. Why didn't he start with someone like, Kai Havertz instead of Timo Werner? Nobody knows, really. But again, he might have think about the Champions League and, trying to get the players as fit as possible to the Champions League final, which is, I think, the important, idea at the moment for Thomas Tuchel, because that's what he's left for to play. Maybe he doesn't want to collapse at the moment now, because it's going to be a bad timing for Chelsea to collapse and just throw it off at the moment, losing the top four battle, and before the Champions League final is going to be a bad omen. But definitely Tuchel probably should learn from the lesson. He said it himself that he will be learning from the lesson, at Wembley in the FA Cup final, and will try not to make the same mistakes. Of course, for Leicester City, they probably would play the same way, really. Brendan Rodgers, I think, cemented himself, I would say, with the FA Cup win with Leicester City. He just left a couple of steps towards achieving a top four spot and getting back to the Champions League. And amidst all of the links for him, with a Tottenham Hotspur job, an Arsenal job, even a Liverpool job at a certain point, it looks at the moment that he might be just the right man for Leicester for the next couple of seasons, getting them an FA Cup win, getting them to the Champions League, and he's really proven himself at the moment this season. I mean, the criticism for him was that he was collapsing at the wrong moments, and that is not something new. That happened for him back in the day at Liverpool, so the precedent was there, and people were worried, the Leicester fans were worried, really, that he might have the same fate this season after they collapsed just about the last hurdle last season and finished just 5th outside of those top 4 spots. This season, it could be the same situation. I mean, who knows? A bad result against Chelsea could be really, ominous and could be really threatening for them, because if they lose, Liverpool win, They become both with 66 points, and that leaves them with a last fixture of an incredible proportions as Liverpool host Crystal Palace, while Leicester, go to host Tottenham Hotspur. So it's a big game. Again, not just for Chelsea and Leicester themselves, but for Liverpool behind them, who want to sneak in. And of course, after the heroics and the dramatic ending against West Brom, they might just have a little bit of extra zenith about them to go and get the top 4 spots in the Premier League. Definitely with the season Liverpool of having injuries, not having a proper shape and lineup really. For the most part, not performing well also, considering that and considering everything else and the pandemic and not buying superstars of players, not going for big moves in the transfer window. I mean, getting into the top 4 would be a huge finish for Liverpool. I mean, it would still be a bad season overall. People would look at that and say it'd still be a bad season. But, the difference between life and death was the game at West Brom and was that header for Alisson in the last moment. So probably Liverpool would consider that an achievement. We consider going into the top 4 an achievement of itself. I mean, Arsene Wenger used to do that. He used to consider that an achievement in his later years for Arsenal. So why not Liverpool now? But obviously, if they don't make it to the Champions League, it's going to affect a lot of things, but we're going to not talk about it now. We're going to be talking about those things later on, hopefully, in the magazine episode. We can talk about those situations. Obviously, elsewhere, there's no real big drama. I mean, you look at Tottenham facing Aston Villa. They're really in Europe. I mean, they're really good in European places. They look decent. At least they guarantee a European place for the moment. They don't have to worry, I think, about anything, but I guess they don't have any chance of sneaking into a top 4. Obviously, the best they could do, Tottenham, at the moment is to get the 5th place of Liverpool, and that will require a lot of luck, I would say, for them. West Ham are out of it. A decent season they had, but I think overall they just collapsed at the wrong moment as well with David Moyes, but also credit to them. I would say David Moyes took them from a bad place to a better place. I would say Europa League isn't that bad considering, the size of the squad as well, the injuries that they had. I mean, they performed really well for the most part, but again, they just dipped in form at the wrong moment. So obviously the Premier League table ahead of this fixture, Man City with 83 points, obviously the champions, United with 70 points, 66 for Leicester City, 64 for Chelsea, 63 for Liverpool at 5th, 59 for both Tottenham and West Ham, Everton 56, 55 for Arsenal, 53 for Leeds, 49 for Aston Villa, 45 for Wolverhampton, Crystal Palace 44, 43 for Southampton, 39 for both Burnley and Newcastle, 38 for Brighton, 27 for Fulham, 26 for West Brom, and 20 for Sheffield United. Carrying on with the momentum of the Premier League, but talking about Spurs now in particular, and of course, as you mentioned, their game against Aston Villa is, pretty needless, it looks like. In terms of getting into the top 4, I mean, the last they could do now is hope for a 5th spot, as I mentioned earlier, from Liverpool, and it doesn't look like they will get there. Probably this season, and it was an up and down season in true Spurs fashion, I would say, for the team, of course, under Jose Mourinho for the most part, before he gets sacked 1 week before the EFL Cup final. It didn't. I mean, the start of the season was really, really good, I would say, for Spurs. Literally, the first game they lose, and they just go on a good run of matches until they, until they collapse pretty much. In the turn of the year, they played really well for a while. They played the counter-attacking football. They were top of the table at a certain point. They were really heading in the right direction with Mourinho, and then everything collapsed. Then they got hacked, I would say. Their way was pretty much discovered, understood, and nobody really, had a problem with Tottenham anymore at the moment. I mean, of course, the exit from the Europa League added more to the problems, and that has a lot of effects on a lot of things, including, of course, the future of Harry Kane at the club, with Spurs. Definitely a servant of the club, a man who's been, a completely loyal person to the club since day one. I mean, he's, of course, he's formed there He learned his trade there at Spurs, of course, since the youth academy. He's been around so many loans, of course. He's been at Leyton Orient, he's been at Millwall, he's been at Norwich, he's been at Leicester on loan as well. And then, of course, he has his big stint since 2013, since the summer of 2013 at Spurs. Of course, those that year-long career at Spurs. Definitely, he's been a loyal player, as I mentioned. A player that scores a lot of goals. Is a player of incredible achievements, I would say, in the in the Premier League. Definitely a player that helped them reach the Champions League final, which I would say is the zenith of their achievements as a club. Even despite the fact that they won a league and they won some FA Cups and AFL Cup trophies, but still, the achieving a Champions League final is pretty much their big deal. Of course, he played 243 Premier League matches, scored 165 goals for them, and really is a player again of incredible proportions. One of the greatest strikers of the Premier League. If you disagree with that point, you probably don't know football, but he comes to a point of his career now where he's 29 and he's looking to the future. He's looking to, or 27 at the moment, he's looking to a point where he needs to look at the future. He needs to look at himself and needs to say, you know what, I should leave Tottenham. I should leave Spurs to win trophies, because with the rate he's going at, he's probably going to be recognised as one of the best players in the history of the Premier League, one of the best strikers in Tottenham history for sure. But definitely, he's not going to be recognised as one of the greatest in the world football. Maybe will be overrated, underrated, depending on the way you look at it. Of course, his value is is depending again of where you fall on the spectre of Harry Kane. If you look at him like one of the greatest, you will say he's one of the greatest. He's one of the best strikers to ever play football. But if you fall on the other side that says if you want to be great, you have to win trophies, you're not going to look at him the same way. But of course, the question is upon his desire to leave. Let's be adamant about that. His desire to leave, because absolutely he reiterated to the board of the club, according to most reports, that he wants to leave the club this summer, and I really don't blame him. Again, we don't blame the guy. He wants to win trophies. He wants to reach the next stage of his career. There's just so many teams at the moment that are, battling for his signature. You see the likes of Man City probably playing, planning him as a maybe Plan B. I mean, for Man City in particular, he might just be a Plan B if Haaland doesn't go through, and it looks like Haaland is staying at Dortmund because they play in Champions League football. So Harry Kane might come as a Plan B, and a really strong Plan B, I would say. The fact that, he scored again 165 goals for Spurs in the Premier League. He looks like someone who would fit the bill right away at Man City and definitely will win trophies with that club, no doubt. Man United as well are going to be in demand, although they extended Cavani's contract for another year, so that might be that they might just sit on the fence for a little while and not exactly demand Harry Kane. Albeit, with the age of Edinson Cavani at 35, they might just think of a younger player to be the number one striker, because I don't think that Cavani at this age can start every game and play most of the games, and play like 30 or 32 games of the season. I think Harry Kane can, and clearly his style would probably be suited with the wingers of Manchester United, serving him crosses and serving him good balls, with the fullbacks as well, and Sean Bissaka maybe serving him good balls as well in the box and aerial front. So you look at the options again. As limited as the options are, they still are strong options. They still really, really strong options that you think Harry Kane would consider. The likes of, again, Man City, Man United, those kind of teams that can afford, of course, the money necessary to demand him, because his transfer market is pretty big at the moment. The transfer value in the market is pretty big at the moment. According to a lot of people, it's 120 million euros, which is, again, a lot. Obviously, he won't be bought with that money, I would say, but definitely he's a great option for those two sides. Outside of those two sides, there is a demand maybe from Real Madrid, potentially, at a certain point, Barcelona, PSG, who knows. There's just a lot of demand on someone like Harry Kane, but we'll see. Mostly it will go down in the Premier League. Assumingly he would make the move in the Premier League, and assuming it's going to be one of the Manchester clubs who's going to be in demand. If it is pure money, I would say it's Man City, but if it is But if it is style and needs, it potentially can be Manchester United, because Manchester United need a striker, while Man City at the moment do not look like they need a striker, and they might do so for a couple of seasons forward. And again, for Man City, mainly it's depending on the plan Haaland, and if the Haaland deal doesn't go to plan, Harry Kane might go as a strong substitute for that. But definitely, he's a great player to fit at both teams. The question will remain, of course, in the air, and we'll see where Harry Kane is going to go. Again, he's been a great Serbian for the club, but if he wants to make the next move, he goes to the next level, maybe leaving Tottenham now is the right moment for him. I mean, he's been loyal enough. He can demand a lot of things from the club, and I don't think the fans should hate them for it, because the fans of Tottenham probably would understand his ambitions and his personal motivations to leave. At a certain point, it's not just about the team, and in today's football, unfortunately, most cases, it's not about the team, it's about the player. I mean, few are the players that are going to be loyal to the club, while their, sort of personal value would be so great that they overpower the club, or they sort of overwhelm the club and really overgrow the club that they play in. And Harry Kane is certainly one of those players that his personal value overgrows the club. Tottenham Tottenham overall are probably going to be a side that's going to be rebuilt next season. There's a lot of players potentially leaving. There's going to be demand on the likes of Son, Dele Alli, again, and Harry Kane as well. So it's probably going to be an overhaul for that club, and Harry Kane might be the biggest piece that's going to be taken out of Spurs next season, depending on the situation. So, yeah, if he wants maybe to win trophies, probably this is the right moment for him to leave. If he doesn't want to leave, which, again, according to all reports, he wants to do, and he wants to see the club through, he has the right to. He has to think about his personal future, and the fans again do not have the right to just hate him for it. And as always, we'll see where this goes. I predict maybe we'll go to Man City, but again, depending as the plan Haaland goes to plan or not for Harry Kane, and we'll see where he's going, where he's going to be his next destination. Let's stop at Italy now, and let's go to the Coppa Italia final, of course. Let's talk about that competition. A Coppa Italia final going to be played tomorrow between Atalanta from Bergamo and Juventus Turin. It is a big game, obviously. Not just for the magnitude of it as a football game, but I think for the contrast of the ambitions between the two sides. Atalanta want to go even higher in the echelon of Italian football, while Juventus consider this Coppa Italia a saving grace for their season, really, a potential maybe Hail Mary to fix their seasons, fix their problems with the league title defense when going to shreds, and Inter Milan winning the league, while of course they're still fighting for the European spots, and there is a big true danger of them not making it into the Champions League next season, which is going to be quite the achievement. But definitely it looks like they just might have the luckiest, last fixture ever with facing Bologna in the league, while Milan, of course, play Atalanta, which might play in their hands depending on the result in Bergamo. Again, for Atalanta, it's the ambitions to go higher in the echelon of the table. Their form this season has been tremendous in the second half of it. After the start was a bit slow, but they caught up pretty well, and they really had some incredible matches as of late. I mean, out of their last 9 matches, they only drawn 2. They're really in a great form again. If their form was duplicated in the first half of the season, we'd have been talking about a title challenger. Maybe we've seen Atalanta as champions, which I still think would happen in the near future if they, get enough investment. I don't think they're a small club anymore now in Italy. Everybody looks at them in a big way now, and everybody is maybe afraid of them and worried about them. Next season might be a huge one. Again, the project under Gianpiero Gasparini is going really well. They're not exactly pumping money into that club, but definitely they're going in the right direction. The stadium now becoming a Champions League host, so that's an improvement. They are stalwarts of the Champions League now, consistently in that competition now for the 3rd season in a row. They will be in there, so it will be quite a transition for Atalanta, I think. This is might be a stamp of approval. They are now a big club in Italy properly if they win the Coppa Italia and against Juventus of all teams. But definitely the league might be the true stamp of approval on their projects. Well, for Juventus again, the season have been mediocre at very best. A total season and a total defense go into shreds. The Champions League exit was really, really, disappointing to say the least. Just like the last season, just like the season prior, it was a pretty disappointing exit from the Champions League, and they might not even get there in the end. I mean, they saved themselves against Inter in a game where controversy reigned supreme, really, with the referee making an absolute meal out of some decisions, particularly the late penalty for Juan Cuadrado, which I really don't understand why it was given. I mean, realistically speaking, that was a weird penalty in my opinion, but we're not going to dwell on that a lot. For Juventus, of course, getting to the Coppa Italia final is a pretty big achievement, I would say, considering the mediocre seasons they've been having, the poor performances they've been putting on, the slow, plodding outings they've been showing against a lot of teams. I mean, even the matches that they're winning sometimes, they still struggle in them. Again, you remember against Sassuolo a couple of weeks ago, you remember against Inter as well, last time out. It was probably a miracle that they defeated Inter Milan 3-2 and they didn't lose points there in Turin, where they had some horrible form as well at home this season. So again, it's a contrast of ambitions, a contrast of styles as well. Pirlo, being his first season, all of that, he's been pretty much the scapegoat, I would say, for Juventus' mediocrity, albeit some of the players really deserve a lot of the blame, I would say. The individual performances of the players have not been good. I mean, you could pinpoint, really, you could count on the fingers of your hand how many players have been decent for Juventus this season. You could say Cuadrado, Cristiano Ronaldo, Federico Chiesa. I mean, Adrian Rabiot was fine, I would say. Weston McKennie, maybe. But aside from that, you cannot really say that the whole Juventus squad was really great. Kulusevski isn't really there, still not clicking. Paulo Dybala, falling in and out of favour with Pirlo, and his personal season hasn't been that great. Aside from that, Cristiano Ronaldo, yes, his top scorer in the Serie A, but not exactly in his greatest form yet. Again, overall, Juventus have been mediocre and average in the season, and this title, if they win it, might be just about the saviour for their season, of course, and maybe a piece of silverware that would deflect the critics a little bit off Andrea Pirlo, albeit his future at the club is going to be uncertain if they don't make it in the Champions League. And this Coppa Italia final might be a little bit of a preview of Juventus's motivations to go through and to get those top 4 spots in Serie A. I really expect a great game out of this, and I kind of lean towards Atalanta winning the trophy. Really, I don't see Juventus doing it with the momentum they're carrying on. I see Atalanta with the team they're putting on, the performances they're putting on. I can see them favourites, really, to win the Coppa Italia. It's not going to be an upset if they do so, because, again, the Champions League stalwarts at the moment, 3rd season in a row they're going to go there, so they are considered a big team in Italy properly, and winning the Coppa Italia is going to be just a stamp of approval for that statement. Talking about teams that are mediocre and average this season, and it's not just Juventus have been so, it's been Barcelona too in Spain, and of course the questions over a lot of things at Barcelona. For the future, is Koeman sacked or not? Reports suggesting that he's going to be sacked within the next few days or months or so, and he's not going to make it the next season. There are other reports denying so, saying that Laporta is, supporting Koeman and supporting his project for the next couple of seasons. But obviously, the biggest question hanging over the Barcelona halls at the club is: have we seen the last of Lionel Messi at Barcelona? Is this last season for Lionel Messi as Barcelona? Is he leaving the club this summer? And obviously, I don't need to tell you that this story and this sort of question is based on the long saga that was Messi almost leaving the club last season. He wanted to leave. He's been adamant. He's been clear to leave. Like, for the first time in a while, he's been so honest and so open about leaving the club that it was basically the biggest saga in world football last season. And there was a pandemic going on. Like, there was a raging pandemic. There was bigger stories in the world. And somehow, Messi almost leaving Barcelona overshadowed everything. So if you're asking this question, is Messi leaving the club, basically? We have to put a lot of considerations into this. Obviously, the financial aspect of it. A few clubs can afford his wages. Not just, it's not going to be a fee. He's leaving on a free if he leaves now. But, it's going to be his wages that are the problem. It's going to be the wages of the club, and few teams can afford his wages. And it's not just about affording the wages. It's about affording the wages and still managing a decent FFP record. According to the current laws at the moment of FFP, which are suspended, I assume because of the pandemic, but in a proper world, the FFP is going to be a problem for any team that's going to try to approach Messi, because the wages are going to be really, really high. He was the highest paid player in the world with Barcelona. Barcelona have the biggest salary, hugest or the biggest wage bill in world football, so you cannot really expect anything else other than a big wage for Lionel Messi to whichever club he lands into. Also, you need to ask yourself, who are the clubs that could afford him literally, or realistically speaking, who are the clubs that could afford him and for what reasons? Obviously, there's only PSG and Man City, realistically speaking. If you're looking at it from a balance, or more financial balance kind of perspective, there's only Man City and PSG who could afford him, and that would create problems for a lot of them. Footballing wise, financially wise, and also, reputation wise. For Man City, it will be, probably a good story. He's going to be linking up and reunited with Guardiola as well. It's going to be a nice story for him going to the Premier League at this age and trying to test himself there. Also, it's going to be a good option for Man City to play. I mean, with the squad that they have, adding Messi to them is going to be like hacking football, basically. But, you look at it like that, maybe they won't need him. Maybe it will be too much for them, trying to accommodate their plans to him. So then it might be as viable option as it might be. It cannot be, logically, it might not happen really, unless Man City are willing to break the bank for him and for his wages and try to change the whole structure of the club just around him. But it won't take really long. I wouldn't, personally, if I was in Man City shoes, I wouldn't invest in Messi really. Not because he's bad, obviously he's not, but I won't invest in someone who would not give me more than 2 years at the very best. Let's be real. How many years Messi still have? 2-3 years maybe at the very best? Man City should invest in someone that would give them 5 and 6 years. Invest in someone like De Bruyne who would give them potentially a decade at the club, really, all things considered. I mean, someone who could be a legend there on his own, really, like Sergio Aguero did when he came to the club in 2011, and he really spent a decade really, and he's a bona fide legend there. So that is what you're looking for. Messi is linked with Barcelona now, and even if he leaves the club and goes somewhere else, he's not going to have the same sort of value. He might not be the same attraction for the Premier League fans. I mean, Premier League fans' mentality is pretty different, I think, to elsewhere in the world. Also, look at PSG. Look at the players that they have. You look at Neymar, Mbappe, and Di Maria. Messi's coming. One of them has to leave. And it's probably going to be Mbappe, because Neymar has just extended his contract till 2026, and he's not going to be leaving potentially. The wage bill is going to be too big, I would say, for PSG to pay the 3 of them, or the 4 of them, if we add Messi to the 3 before him. Mbappe probably is leaving this season because of he doesn't leave, and he didn't extend his contract, so might lose him on a free next season, which is going to be a calamitous mistake, I would say, for the PSG. So they might just let one of them, three, Neymar, Mbappe, and Di Maria, leave in order to give a place for Messi, but still there's going to create a lot of problems in the terms of the wage bill. And again, it might not be as big of a challenge for Messi. I mean, for him personally, he might want to calm there. He want to stay in a league where there's not so many lights, but of course he's Lionel Messi, so people are going to follow what he's going to be doing in Ligue 1. I mean, the options are really limited. Looking at it from a footballing perspective, looking at it from a financial perspective, maybe he should go to the MLS, go into China, I don't know, the options again are limited. If he wants to stay in the top level in Europe, again, only a handful of teams could afford him, and only a handful of teams could accommodate for him, most importantly, because most of European teams at this stage, even Messi, as great as he is, maybe they will be like, you know what, we're not getting that, and we don't need to accommodate a player that won't give us more than 1 or 2 years at the top level at the very best. So there's a lot of considerations to really think about when you talk about Messi. And the last option probably is staying at Barcelona. I mean, who knows with the yes, they have lots of debts and they need to get rid of some financial problems, and probably Messi leaving would be good for them, taking his wage off their bills, but definitely he's a player that has been linked to Barcelona. He loves the club, he cares about the club, that's why he participated in the elections. So So he probably would stay at Barcelona with a little bit of good persuasion from Laporta, maybe convincing him with a new project, maybe giving him a little bit of a freedom and control in the club in terms of assigning the new manager. The reports are that maybe Xavi is going to be the manager next season, so who knows what could happen. But definitely it's a situation worth following, and it's a situation that is going to be developing over the next couple of months and weeks maybe. Thanks for watching/listening. I was your boy the HOD of the PSP. Like, share, comment on the YouTube version of this podcast, subscribe to the YouTube channel, enable notifications to receive all the updates, follow us on social media site PSP_pod on Instagram, and of course listen on Spotify, Google Podcast or any other platform. And until next time, I'll see you soon. Goodbye.